God's source of life, joy, and true freedom. This month's celebration of our nation's anniversary of independence featured many community events and school activities that highlight our history and culture. We now pause in this way to reflect with thanksgiving the countless blessings you have showered on our country. We give thanks for all those who've served their people within this chamber, for those who serve now. We acknowledge once again the words of our anthem. The Lord has been the people's guide for the past 300 years, and with Him still on the people's side, we have no doubts or fears. Bless every Barbadian and those who reside in this land. Send your Holy Spirit on our elected leaders as we give thanks and ask you, O God, the Holy Spirit, to reflect on your word. Give them the prudence of Solomon in their deliberations. May we all heed these words. If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and heal their land. So may all be done this day for your honor and glory. Amen. Say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Ready? This House is now in session.
Announcements by Your Honour. Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General.
Minutes of meeting held on November the 12th, I think.
Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, good morning. Beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the Honourable House of Assembly held on the 20th of November 2018 be suspended. Be deferred, sorry.
The question is that those minutes be deferred. All members in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Petitions, papers.
And you don't have fundamental.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm commanded to lay the Road Traffic Registration Fees Order 2018.
Notices of questions, reports from select committees, first reading of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, or replies to questions. Notice of motions for adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. Orders of the day.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to lay the...
Suspend.
So you're not laying right now?
Did already.
This? Okay. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that standing orders number 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, 5, 43, and 44 be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. Oh, sorry, Billion Lady. Billion Lady, what are you talking about? Road traffic.
Government businesses know the order of the day.
Order number 4, sir. Order number 4, in the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Honourable Ryan Strong, to move second reading of the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2018.
Member for Christchurch East Central.
Good morning, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Okay.
Before I commence this particular debate, I want through you, sir, to extend to the country happy independence for 2018 as we seek to, in this season, reassert and reaffirm to the country that Barbados shall continue to chart a path with confidence, and as we embark certainly further into our Barbados Economic and Recovery and Transformation Plan, that the tenets on which, sir, 52 years ago that we started as a nation, that this government will seek to continue to build on that foundation, such that for the next generation of Barbadians, sir, for the next 50 years, that Barbadians at home and abroad, sir, will be proud of the achievements of this fair land. Sir, I also want to take this opportunity to extend my personal congratulations to the Deputy Clerk, for whom obviously this August chamber is now blessed, because as we know, this year has been a historic year in Barbados and certainly in the life of this Parliament. And so as we continue, sir, to develop our parliamentary procedures, it is a welcome, sir, to see her in this role as the first female to be a part of this chamber in that capacity. Now, sir, the matter before the Parliament this morning relates to the Income Tax Amendment and Validation Bill 2018. And, sir, the objects and reasons as identified here says this bill would make provision for an increase of certain rates of tax payable by individuals and corporations. B, the calculation of simple interest on arrears of tax. C, a write-off of tax, penalties, and interest, and a conditional waiver of penalties and interest incurred on arrears of tax. And D, the validation of taxes purportedly paid and collected at an increased rate. Now, sir, on June 11th in this chamber, the Honourable Prime Minister and member for St. Michael North East, in her budgetary proposals for 2018, sought, sir, to set the stage within which the Barbados economy will start to stabilize. And, sir, one of the important budgetary proposals at that time, sir, was to ensure that the government had the capacity, sir, to be able to finance itself over the short term by doing a number of things, but one of the key provisions, sir, was to make sure that the revenue component of government in the short term was stabilized. And so these amendments that have been brought to this chamber, sir, and I must apologize to the chamber, because, as you know, we have been trying to make sure that we bring legislation as quickly as we can to put all of our policies on good legislative footing. And whilst these measures were announced on June 11th, we are aware that the period for the provisional collection of taxes, sir, has expired. But that's because, sir, we have had to, in a sense, prioritize some of the other more immediate pieces of legislation to bring to this chamber. But needless to say, sir, these measures were introduced at the time of the budget, sir, to make sure that we start the stabilization process as far as the economy is concerned. Now, sir, it is not lost on you or any other Barbadian that over the last few years, the notion of taxation, sir, has almost become a bad word in this country. And it has become a bad word in this country, sir, because for 10 years, the government of Barbados, sir, has essentially failed in its mandate to make sure that as persons go about their business, whether as individuals or in the commercial sector, go about their normal business and pay their taxes, that the management or lack thereof, sir, of the economy over the last few years, and certainly the management of the ministry in which I now sit, was such that Barbadians started to lose faith in government. As we know, sir, and I want to make no apology about it, the people of this country have grown accustomed, sir, that when you file your taxes under Barbados Labour Party government, that you would be paid the refunds in the same year, of course, unless there is some dispute with respect to the assessments. And so this matter of taxation, sir, is quite vexing for the ordinary Barbadian. It is quite vexing for business people, sir, because of the way that the economy was managed over the last few years. And so whilst taking office in May, and whilst one of the early measures was to increase taxes in this manner, we were conscious, sir, of the backdrop under which Barbadians, having experienced poor tax planning through the introduction of policies by the previous administration, we knew it was important, sir, to make sure that as we seek to restore not just general economic confidence, but really, sir, restore the trust that the citizen and persons who engage in business in this country, that to restore that trust that they had in its government. Because no matter the level of taxation that is levied on the people, sir, there's a fundamental principle in public policy. And certainly by way of when one is assessed to have paid too much tax, that the refund of that taxation, sir, is one of the most basic statutory obligations that any government has with respect to the citizen. Because people are prepared to pay taxes, sir, when they know that, one, the provision of the public goods and services associated, sir, with paying said taxes are being delivered, and that further, if for some reason, sir, you have paid too much, that you will be repaid, that you will be refunded said taxes. Now, Now, sir, and as you are well aware, for 14 years, certainly under the previous Barbados Labour Party administration, the management of the public finances was such that people could go about their affairs, sir, in a way that they knew that when they filed in April, sir, that July, August, September, when it's time for people to start their back-to-school preparation, sir, that these were the things that were routine. In the business community, sir, it meant that when you file your value-added taxes, sir, it meant that you were able to, in the appropriate time frame, sir, get your refunds in a manner that allowed for businesses to be able to plan out their affairs, manage their cash flow. And sir, whether we like, there are some persons who don't appreciate that government has a responsibility, sir, in engendering confidence in the economy. And the simple thing about economics, sir, and economic growth is that so long as there's good consumer confidence, good business confidence, and good investor confidence, sir, your economy will grow. But if there is no confidence, sir, in any of those three areas, which the government in of itself, sir, seeks to erode, then your economy simply will not be able to grow because people simply will not be in a position to plan out their affairs. And it is important, sir, that we understand the context, on the one hand, as to why we had to take these initial steps in June, because we know how the Barbados Labour Party, sir, manages the tax affairs of this country. And the people know how the Barbados Labour Party manages the public finances of this country. And so even though we knew at the time, sir, that the imposition of these certainly additional taxes on personal income tax, as they are, would have obviously increased the tax burden for those for whom it was effective with respect to the 40%, and we'll get to that shortly in terms of the new tax ban. We knew that these are the very people, sir, many of them, for whom there has been a significant build-up, sir, of arrears of tax refunds over the last 10 years, that these are the said persons who we were now seeking to ask to make a further sacrifice. But sir, we did so because we were very confident that one, that when we rolled out the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, sir, which we sought to do by engaging first, sir, the social partners. And sir, it cannot be lost on yourself or the rest of the country that the importance, sir, the importance of the consultations that took place in the very early days, sir, of this administration with the social partnership. Because it is that consultation, sir, that led in the first instance to, on the face of it, sir, the benefit of the doubt. Because as I said, having experienced bad public policy management for 10 years, being, in a sense, cast out in the wind because there was no consultation, sir, effectively done with the social partners. So when we pulled everybody into the room, sir, and we explained, this is what we need to do on the revenue side. This is what we intend to do on the expenditure side. This is what we intend to do, sir, with respect to debt and the reforms within government, sir. And we walk through, sir, the framework under which not just this particular measure that is here before us this morning will be taken, but when we look at the broader picture, there was almost, sir, unanimous agreement, because let's be frank, sir, given the experience of the last 10 years, nobody would want to entertain the notion of paying more taxes. But when we laid out for the social partnership, sir, why we needed to increase this personal income taxes in this way, and for the period of time for which we'll be doing it, given that we knew as well that we had to do a comprehensive reform of the entire tax system in next year. That we understood, sir, that in the first instance we needed to set about a plan and a path for stabilizing the economy. And so I can say to you, sir, the notion of paying more taxes at this particular time, and we appreciate that persons, certainly those for whom the buildup of tax arrears is almost unpalatable. It is that sacrifice for country, sir, the sacrifice for country, that the leaders of the private sector, the leaders in the trade union movement, sir, all agreed that these measures were important to effectively bring a measure of stabilization to an economy, sir, that when we inherited was the worst economy ever handed over to any government any time in the history of this country. And so we started in that process, sir, with the rebuilding of that confidence. That confidence. Because through those consultations, sir, we put proposals on the table. They were tested, in a sense, in the room. People put counter proposals as part of the framework for developing the broader public policy. And so, sir, in that very space, over those many meetings in early June, well, May and June, there was a sense, sir, of national consensus being built by the leadership, not just in government, but certainly the private sector and the labor movement. Which, sir, it was a breath of fresh air, simply because, sir, up until that time, almost a person, sir, had almost lost faith in Barbados' ability, sir, to chart its path on an economic front, sir, with the kind of confidence and swagger as we did in the past. And so we sought, sir, to make sure that we laid out the broad context within which these tax measures before the House today were put in place. And sir, it is not lost on the Ministry of Finance, sir, by any stretch of the imagination, that the trust that the leadership of the social partnership, and by extension, sir, the rest of the citizens and the constituents of those entities, but certainly the ordinary citizens, sir, that having agreed to the increased taxation, that this government, sir, had the responsibility to make sure that we live up, sir, to the expectations of the people of this country. And I want to say to you, sir, that we have started that process. And we have started that process, sir, because as you are well aware, sir, and as some of the persons I've had the opportunity to interact with over the course of the last 2 weeks, that there are a lot of persons, excuse me, a lot of persons, sir, who over the course of the last few weeks have been caught by surprise, sir. Surprise. And they were surprised simply because, sir, having experienced a decade, sir, a decade, and I want, sir, to highlight for you and for the benefit of the House that since 2008, sir, to 2016, that there has been a buildup of arrears with respect to personal income tax, sir, of some $116 million. Now, sir, you know full well that if you are a law-abiding citizen and you are working hard, sir, paying your taxes, And every year, sir, you are filing your taxes and almost being, in a sense, as some people have expressed to me, sir, feel as if they were being threatened that if they don't file that they can get fined. And then the government owing them, sir, and then expect you to pay, to continue paying, sir. It starts to erode the trust in government. So 116 million, sir. $116 million between 2008 and 2016. With respect to corporate income tax, sir, approximately 96 million in arrears, sir, with respect to taxes on corporate income tax. Thank you very much. Almost $24 million, sir, 23.8 to be precise, in reverse tax credit. These are the arrears, sir. And on VAT, sir, $102 million in arrears over that period of time. Now, sir, this is the context in which, having inherited the government, we understood, sir, that we needed to start to rebuild the trust. And so as we embark on the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, sir, and I want to make it clear to you, through you, sir, to the country, because some persons have called and asked why it is that the government of Barbados only paid so far the 2017 income tax refunds. And sir, that is an important question, one. But as I laid out for you, sir, we know that in order to restore confidence, sir, that the first thing that we have to do, sir, is to stay current. So we cannot build up any more arrears. So having built up $116 million in personal income tax arrears in 10 years, as a responsible government, understand the context, we went about, sir, ensuring, as we've done with the stabilization effort over the last few months, is to make sure, sir, that the persons who filed their income tax in April of this year, sir, that the Barbados Revenue Authority, sir, over the course of the last few weeks, has repaid almost $25 million in the assessed arrears to those persons, refunds for the 2017 income year, sir. Now, sir, that is important because we now must get people accustomed to government doing business in the way that it was supposed to be done. Now, sir, technically speaking, we were a little late because the money should have been paid by the end of October. Should have been paid by the end of October. But sir, as you are well aware, as we have embarked on the Barbados Economic and Recovery and Transformation Plan, we have been making sure, sir, that we do not put out money unless we know, sir, where it's going to come from. And so therefore, as we sought to pull as we have sought to assure the citizens, sir, that that the government has to be responsible. And the truth is, sir, even to some degree, the staff within these various institutions that interface with the public, sir, they've gotten a bad image, bad reputation in a sense, not because of their doing, but because of the poor public policy and management by the previous administration. But sir, I can say to the citizens that the staff at the Barbados Revenue Authority, no matter how you hope citizens may feel about the Barbados Revenue Authority in how they've been interacting with them over the last 2 years, I'm asking through you, sir, the citizens to now judge the Revenue Authority and certainly this government through the new way that we are now going to be interacting with them when it comes to these tax matters. And the staff has worked hard, sir, to make sure that people have been paid those income tax refunds. Now, sir, I say to you, people express surprise Because the truth is, even though we said that we were going to start paying the refunds, people have been in contact with me personally, sir, and it don't need to say that they saw some money on their bank account, and they were wondering, what is this money? And they went to the bank, sir, to confirm that it wasn't a mistake on the part of the bank, because obviously in these times, people want to make sure that when they spend the money, that nobody coming back to ask back for monies. So there are a lot of citizens, sir, who over the course of the last few weeks would have received 2017 tax refunds. Completely surprised, because it's something, sir, that for the last 8, 9 years, 10 years, they have not experienced en masse, sir, en masse, filing and being paid refunds in the same year. And so as we seek to normalize, sir, this process, we want to assure the citizens that there is no mistake on the part of the Barbados Revenue Authority. There is no mistake on the part of the government. It is your money, sir. And people are free, sir, to spend their money as they see fit. Now, sir, that demonstrates, and I'm sure, sir, some of your constituents would probably have relayed the same story to you. But it just demonstrates, sir, that the extent to which ordinary Barbadians would have lost faith in its government to do that which it was supposed to do. Now, sir, so the question is, which some people ask, so what about 2016? What about 2015? What about 2014? And so forth. Because, as we know, sir, the last administration in the last 2 to 3 years removed, sir, the allowances that were available to Barbadians who, as I said, in July, August, September will get a fairly hefty tax refund, which will help spur a little growth in the economy as people prepared for their back to school and land tax and other spending that they would have with government. And so I am here this morning, sir, to say through you to the citizens. Under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, sir, those tax arrears for personal income tax, which I remind you is 116 million, will be repaid over the course of the next 3 years to citizens. In much the same way, sir, as we are seeking to settle the broader context with respect to whether it is arrears owed to the private sector or the arrears that the government owes to the national insurance for national insurance contributions for public servants, sir, that those arrears are going to be settled over the next few years. Now, for some people, sir, as we have done in essence with respect to the provisions for the pensioners, for example, under the debt restructuring, as we monitor the cash flow, and I want to make a point, sir, which is absolutely critical. As we came into office, sir, our level of foreign reserves were at the lowest I think any government ever inherited from anybody. And the reality, sir, is that as we seek to put money back into the economy, we are conscious, sir, that we have to always balance how much money we are putting back into circulation, because there's one thing that all Barbadians, sir, no matter where you come from, how old you are, that we agree, that the stability of our dollar, sir, and maintaining the peg is without question. And so therefore, as the government seeks to settle these arrears, we are always conscious, sir, of the balance between how much Barbados dollars we have in the system vis-a-vis the level of foreign currency available in the banking system, but also the foreign currency available with respect to the central bank. And our ability, sir, to make sure that people can transact their business knowing that the value of the Barbados dollar to the US dollar is sound. And so it is in that context, sir, that we are always on a path to ensure that we don't create any disequilibrium, so to speak, or any additional pressure with respect to where the reserves are and where Barbadians, where there's domestic dollars in the economy. And so we have set out on a path to make sure that as we put money back into the economy, we know, sir, that confidence will return. And confidence will return simply because the government has changed the nature of the behavior and its relationship with the citizen and with business, with the business community, and certainly with the investor community. And as such, we know that over time, we will start to see greater foreign direct investment and what have you, because of the confidence, sir. Confidence. And that, sir, is one of the critical elements in terms of this plan. So, for the citizen who is worried about the arrears that are owed for 2016 going back, sir, as we are monitoring our cash flow, and it's over the course of the next few years, those arrears for personal income tax will, as well, sir, as the reverse tax credit, as I say to you, because the reverse tax credit, sir, is one of those policies that a previous Barbados Labour Party government put in place, sir, to ensure that those persons who are earning less than $18,000, that they were able, sir, to see some relief with respect to the rising cost of living. And the mere fact, sir, that over the last few years that the previous administration was unable, sir, to settle in a timely basis these reverse tax credits, it just demonstrates to you, sir, how flawed the management of the public policy was under the last administration. And so, having just paid about $25 million in personal income tax for 2017, we are also, sir, in the next phase, we are going to be settling those VAT returns from the second quarter of this year coming forward, sir. And we'll also be settling the reverse tax credit for 2017 as well, sir. Because in staying current with our obligations, we are effectively, sir, changing the nature of the relationship that people would have had with government and establishing something new. Now, sir, these amendments before the House are just meant to reaffirm the initiatives outlined in the budget of June 11th by the Honourable Prime Minister. And in that budget, the government of Barbados sought to introduce a new ban for personal income tax. And so, sir, at Clause 2, it speaks to the amendment of Section 42 of the Income Tax Act, Cap 73. And as the public is already aware, since this has already been in place since August 1st, and I just read for completeness, for the benefit of the House and the country, sir, that we were deleting the opening words in the substantive act and inserting the following paragraph to bring the measures into effect. But it says, from the 1st of August 2018 and income years thereafter, 16% of every complete dollar of taxable income up to and including $35,000 to 33.5% of every complete dollar of taxable income above $35,000 and up to and including $50,000. And 3, sir, 40% of every complete dollar of taxable income above $50,000. So we introduced, sir, that tax ban, but as you are well aware, sir, the tax-free allowance is $25,000. So therefore, it just means that effectively, for those persons earning over $75,000, that now is where the 40% is applied. Now, sir, this is done, or has been done, against the backdrop that we understand, sir, that there still needs to be comprehensive tax reform done, which we are in the process of undertaking, which should be completed during the course of next year. But, sir, the interesting thing here about these provisions as well is that at the time of the budget, we understood, sir, again, that corporates also needed to make a contribution with respect to income tax. And Section 3 of this particular bill, sir, Clause 3 speaks to Section 43 of the Principal Act in terms of the income tax with respect to corporations. And so, therefore, at subsection 5 in the Principal Act, we are seeking to introduce, it said, with effect from income year 2018, the tax payable by a company upon its taxable income is 30% of every complete dollar of that taxable income. Now, sir, this almost seems, in a sense, given the ministerial statement by the Prime Minister last week about the tax convergence being contemplated from 2019 onward. I just want to remind the public that this 30% is still required for income year 2018. And so, whilst the corporate tax landscape, as announced by the Honourable Prime Minister last week, speaks to tax convergence, which means that there's little difference for tax purposes between a domestic company and those we might otherwise refer to as international businesses from 2019 as articulated by the Prime Minister. These measures are still required to make sure that we are able to bridge the gap with respect to our revenues for income year 2018. And so, whilst this bill seeks to bring that and validate it, obviously we have received some very positive feedback with respect to the initiative with respect to tax convergence from 2019 onward. But the reality is, sir, is that this is still required to make sure that we are able to fill the financing gap with respect to revenue for income year 2018. And so, in much the same way, sir, as we knew that we needed to have not just a measure of comprehensive tax reform, but certainly as it relates to individuals, we have ordinarily we would like to have done it in a manner where it's done one time, as the Prime Minister indicated, but because of the circumstances of where the economy has been and where we are moving it to, it would not be possible to do everything in one fell swoop. And so we are having, sir, to do things a little differently from how the Barbados Labour Party would ordinarily do things. And with that, I don't mean that in any negative way. It is simply that under normal circumstances, sir, we would have with appropriate time, we would have been able to announce for individuals what would pertain to them with respect to 2019 going forward, in the same way that we've been able to do with respect to the corporate taxation policy. And so therefore, as we complete that comprehensive tax reform next year, then we will be able then to articulate, sir, for the next year, what those tax arrangements will be for individuals in that space. Now, sir, in the budget of June 11th, the Prime Minister also announced the fact that as we were going through a process of upgrading our tax systems, that there were a number of issues that certainly the Barbados Revenue Authority had to deal with. And one of those issues, sir, was related to the fact that we have on our books, sir, basically taxes that are almost, in a sense, uncollectible. And so we sought, sir, to make sure that from that perspective that there was some ability for the Barbados Revenue Authority, as we sought to move to a new tax system, to make sure that we have the capacity to, in a sense, start the slate clean with respect to the way that we were going to be able to account for the monies that certainly Barbadians are perceived to owe the tax authorities, and differentiate between that which is collectible and that which is not. And we obviously would have set about, on the one hand, announcing at that time, that between 1966 and the year 2000, that we were going to write off effectively any taxes that were owed during that period of time. We also said, sir, that between 2000 and 2017, sir, that there would have been an amnesty which would have waived all penalties and all interest on any taxes, sir, that were owed to the government of Barbados between 2000 and 2017. And that amnesty obviously started July 1st and now ends on December 31st, 2018. And so we sought to make sure, sir, that we are in a position to move forward such that the Revenue Authority and certainly citizens will have the opportunity to go and engage, sir, the Revenue Authority. And I wish to, through you, sir, remind the citizens that that amnesty is still in place, and that if there are any persons who have been assessed to owe the government any monies between 2000 and 2017, that there is still time to go to the Revenue Authority and engage or enter, into the appropriate payment plan to allow for them to be able to settle those tax arrears. And sir, as we know, and I want to take the opportunity here to say to citizens, we know the Revenue Authority was set up such that you will be able to offset various tax obligations. But the reality is, sir, is that the systems of taxation were all different. And how I was viewed in once for income tax, for example, was different from how it might have been viewed for VAT, was different from how it was viewed for corporate income tax. And so therefore, sir, and even for land tax for that matter. So even though all of those different departments were brought together, sir, under one entity called the Barbados Revenue Authority, the systems still did not allow for clarity where the tax authority would be able to see anybody, sir, any entity, as one single view. And over the course of the last year and a half or so, those systems have started to be pulled together, and the public now, sir, has been asked, certainly a lot of the, if not all of the corporate entities should have already registered in the new tax administration management information system. Individual citizens, sir, are now being asked to register under the new TAMIS system, because, sir, it allows us now for the first time to see the tax authorities, to see entities and individuals in one window, to see what you owe here or if we owe you money there, such that there's one view of the taxpayer. And so therefore, sir, going forward, we will have the ability to be able to offset simply because the system now allows for the tax authorities to be able to do so. And so whilst it was almost not impossible, but difficult, given that for each tax system that we had prior to this situation, it would have been difficult for the tax authorities to know what is the correct view in terms of who owes what to whom. And we now have a situation now where for the first time we will be able to remedy that situation. So I want to encourage certainly members of the chamber, and I must admit, having met with the Revenue Authority recently, I haven't signed up yet, but I want to encourage members of the House to sign up to the new TAMIS system. I want to encourage the citizens to also, sir, sign up, because what we want to be able to ensure is that come April of next year, when it is tax filing season for individuals, that all of the issues that, as you can anticipate, might happen, that we need to take care of those as soon as possible. And so therefore, I haven't been delinquent as my colleagues may be suggesting. I've just been busy. I've just been busy. But the reality, sir, is I am trying. But sir, we want to make sure that the filing process next year is as seamless as possible. So we really do want to appeal through you, sir, to the citizens, certainly at this time of independence. I know tax has become a bad word, but the reality is that this government is going to change in a very fundamental way how people see their responsibility with respect to supporting the state and the public policy programs that the state provides, and rekindling, sir, that patriotism that we all would have felt growing up in this country. So I'm asking not just members, let's talk to our constituents, remind them that they need to all register on the no tax system, and so that your government, sir, your government, for the first time in its history, will be able to not just offset, but to plan, sir, plan effectively such that the taxpayer can get the best value for money. Now, sir, we also sought to look at the provisions with respect to how the calculation of interest is done. And one of the things, sir, that obviously has pretty much vexed people is that, yes, they may owe taxes, but the way in which the interest would have been calculated has reached a point where people now owe more interest than they owe in actual taxes. And for whatever reason, sir, as you know, the economy under the previous administration was languishing. So people had to make some decisions about their own personal circumstances, even to some degree, the operation of their businesses. And in straitened circumstances, sir, not that it is an excuse, but people make decisions, in a sense, in the here and now. And the truth is, sir, people started to feel as if they were being taken for a ride, because they simply were not seeing the kind of representation or the kind of public service provision that they were accustomed to. And so these are some of the provisions, sir, that we sought to rectify in this bill. So let me just go through this section, sir, for completeness. So section 4 of this particular act speaks to, in respect of the income year 2006 and subsequent years up to 2017, with respect to the corporate tax, it was 25%. And then clause B speaks to, in respect of income year 2018 and subsequent years, 30% with respect to corporation tax. But of course, sir, as I mentioned earlier, the Prime Minister having announced the no tax regime last week, then obviously at the appropriate time we will have to obviously bring back the appropriate legislation to reflect that. And so whilst this particular bill here was on the order paper for some time, the reality for corporate entities obviously has changed with respect to 2019 going forward. So this particular provision here obviously would need to be amended going forward. Clause 5 here speaks to, it says, a person who fails to pay an amount that he is required by sections 1912, 64, 64B, 64C, 64D, 64E, 64F, 64G, 64H, 64I, 64J, 64K, 65(2), 4, 4A, or 5, or 66(1A), to pay at or within the time prescribed shall, in addition to the penalty imposed by subsection 2, pay to the commissioner simple interest at a rate of 0.5% per month, calculated on the amount that was not paid. So, sir, this section has been deleted, and we have inserted the following clause, which speaks to a person for whom Section 1 applies or who fails to pay an amount of tax that is estimated by him or that is assessed on him for an income year within the time required by Section 66, or who fails to pay an amount imposed by Section 46 within the time specified in that section, shall, in addition to the penalty imposed by subsection 1 or subsection 5, pay to the commissioner simple interest at a rate of 1% per month, calculated on the amount that was not paid. So, sir, these and the next set of provisions, sir, speaking to the write-offs, as I mentioned earlier, with respect to the write-off of taxes between 1968 and 2000, and then obviously the waiver of penalty and interest from January 2001 to December 2017 are outlined in clause 7 of the bill. Now, sir, at page 7 of the bill, it says where under clause 7, it speaks to the waiver referred to in subsection 1 applies only where the penalty or interest on the arrears of tax accrued between the 1st of January 2011 and 31st December 2017, and the arrears of tax are paid in full no later than December 31st, 2018. And B, an agreement is entered into with the Barbados Revenue Authority no later than 31st December for the repayment of tax arrears. And so, sir, it's important that persons recognize that, as I said, between now and the end of the year, they can still present themselves to the Revenue Authority with respect to those income taxes owed between 2001 and 2017, to have them settled, or at least be in a process of having them settled with respect to what they owe to the Revenue Authority, such that we are in a position, sir, as a country to move forward with certainty. Now, sir, it says where a person fails to comply with the terms and conditions specified in an agreement entered into pursuant to subsection 2B in the Barbados Revenue Authority may terminate the agreement and all penalties and interests become payable. And so, sir, this is going to be a very critical part of how we change things. And so as the government, sir, on the one hand, is staying current with respect to its expenditure and settling of any invoices going forward, sir, as well as we, in addition to the settlement of the arrears for tax and trade payables that the government owes to the private sector, sir, and individuals in this country, that the arrangements that either individuals or certainly, I think for the most part, businesses may enter with the Barbados Revenue Authority, because the structure for settlement, sir, of both arrears and staying current under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan would mean, sir, that any person or any entity for whom, one, the government may owe them, in which case they end up owing the government money because of the cash flow situation, that as government seeks, sir, to embark on the clearance of those arrears as well as staying current, it means, sir, that the cash flow, especially to businesses, will improve such that any agreement that they've entered into, in a sense, with the Revenue Authority, that they will be able to actually sustain. And so therefore, sir, we are making sure, as I said, that we change the nature of the relationship that the citizens have had with their government, because we know, sir, that by changing that relationship, that confidence will return in the economy. The last section, sir, speaks to the validation. And this is because, sir, as I mentioned to you earlier, we have had to fast, in a sense, introduce other critical pieces of legislation in order, sir, to make sure that the government is in a position to do the things that I just articulated that we needed to do to restore confidence. So the validation section here, sir, says notwithstanding sections 3, 2, and 5 of the Provisional Collection of Taxes Act, Cap 85, all taxes, sir, purportedly paid and collected at an increased rate pursuant to the Income Tax Cap 73 from the first day of August 2018 to the date of commencement of this act shall be deemed to have been lawfully and validly paid and collected. Now, sir, we know that the economy, sir, is on its way back. One of the first signs of that, sir, was that recently, I know that citizens have grown accustomed to hearing about downgrades and the like. And, sir, for the first time in a long while, the citizens of this country, in a sense, got a little boost to their self-confidence because, as you know, sir, Barbados has always led the way in terms of prudent fiscal management. People look to Barbados across the region as an example, sir, of how to do things. And Barbados, in a sense, sir, has started to lose a little bit of faith and self-belief in ourselves. And while, sir, we know in this government that there is still a lot of work left to be done, the first sign, sir, the first sign that we are on the right path is that recently, sir, we got a credit upgrade with respect to Standard & Poor's, which, sir, sought to raise our credit rating by 4 notches. 4 notches, sir. And that, sir, is important to the psyche of Barbadians because having an expectation of downgrade after downgrade, as we spoke about, certainly not just on the campaign trail, but we saw the cost of government's servicing its debt escalate because of said downgrades. The fact, sir, that one, we have gotten that upgrade is just but one signal, sir, to the country that this Barbados Labour Party government, sir, as people have asked us, why are we working so hard? We've got to slow down. And, sir, the Prime Minister keeps saying that time, sir, she would normally say, we don't have time put down. And so, therefore, sir, we have been working over the last 6 months, not just to get a credit upgrade, but we want, sir, to deliver certainly a better life for all of our people. And certainly, sir, the members of this chamber and the members of this government, sir, are committed to ensuring that we leave no stone unturned, sir, to make sure that in the first instance that we can stabilize this economy. But then, secondly, sir, make sure that we can start to see measurable improvements in the quality of services that are being delivered to the public of Barbados. And we will continue to work hard, sir, simply because the hole that we have been left in, sir, is too deep, sir, for a business as usual approach. And so we are committed, sir, not just to reforming the way that certainly we do business. We have to reform a lot of the systems within the public service. But, sir, we believe that this country needs to reform everything that we do, improve it. And so we are doing the very tangible things now, sir, that will lead or give people the confidence to continue on that path of reform. Now, sir, it is not by any stretch of the imagination for anybody to conclude that because we are starting to we've kept current with our obligations and we are starting to pay back the arrears that has been built up by the previous administration. I do not want for any moment, sir, for anybody to believe that we are in a normal situation. There is a lot of work that is left to be done to get Barbados back to a state where citizens will feel that sense of pride, but that sense of pride, sir, must be founded, in a sense, by hard work. We got to work smart, but we also got to work hard, because we cannot, sir, allow ourselves to start to feel comfortable. Because the moment that we start to feel comfortable, sir, we want Barbadians to act to, in a sense, sir, check themselves. Because this hole is too deep, sir, for us to be comfortable about the depth of this hole. And even when we get out of the hole, sir, we must dust ourselves off and go fresh. Because the work, this early work that we have done, must now be built on. The momentum must be maintained. And sir, this is the start of the journey. There are more reforms to be done and brought through this Parliament to the people of Barbados, which we know will restore that confidence in not just in the economy, but in Barbados. Confidence for our young people to see that they could go into the world and be competitive. And so therefore, everything that we do, sir, has to be pretty much re-examined with a view, sir, to making a definitive statement that anything that is done any part of the world, sir, that Barbados could do it better. And once we are committed to that, sir, it means that our ability to earn a living, not just here in Barbados, but any part of the world, as we seek to go global, our citizens now must have that confidence that the government certainly has their back, but they can plan their affairs, sir, in a manner that is consistent with what they expect Barbados to look like. And so these tax measures, sir, before the House basically are just to obviously validate the tax measures introduced in the budget in June. But I say to Barbadians, as we go through certainly the next year and a half, the next 2 years, that your government will be refunding those tax arrears that would have been built up between 2008 and 2016. We will also, sir, settle all of those trade payables in a framework, sir, that allows businesses to plan, sir, plan. Because as I mentioned to you earlier, sir, where there is no confidence, the economy is not going to grow. And this economy has been devoid of confidence for quite some time. And the first important thing that this government had to secure, sir, was the confidence not just of the social partnership, but certainly the confidence of the country that we are on the right path. Now, sir, in the Ministry of Finance, sir, we are very conscious that as the measures that we have introduced, sir, in various ways start to have its impact on individuals and their households, and certainly some businesses, we know that our plan with respect to those settlement of those trade payables and arrears will in effect provide, in a sense, a stimulus. Because on the one hand, individuals and businesses have become indebted, more so because of a lack of cash flow and having to make decisions with respect to payments from government. And so as we settle that, we know that obviously some of that indebtedness will be paid down, but we also know that some businesses will also reinvest in their plant and equipment and their service offerings. But on top of that, sir, in terms of the settlement of those arrears, obviously, sir, the new tax regime, for corporate entities, in a sense, will provide the biggest boost, sir. On top of just having the monies to help manage your business, the fact, sir, that you are now operating in a jurisdiction where there's no difference between domestic activity and international activity in that sense, then it means that confidence, sir, in this Barbados economy will start to rise. And we certainly anticipate that as we go through this period of time, that in a year from now, in a year's time, if we were to measure the confidence now versus then, simply based on how government interacts with citizens and how government interacts with businesses, I think we will see a marked improvement, simply because our ability, sir, to not just meet the targets under the BERT plan, but as I said, rebuild that trust and repair the damage, sir, that many citizens would have experienced, have formulated in their minds based on the way that they have been treated over the last 10 years. And so, sir, this income tax amendment and validation bill is before the House, as I said, to make those provisions made in the budget have legal footing by way of legislation. But, sir, the people of Barbados expect better management of the public finances. And this is just part, sir, of us repairing that trust and signaling to the people that they have a government, sir, a government that knows what it's doing, a government that will take decisions in order to make sure that there is stability, sir. And with that stability, it means that individuals and businesses will be able to carry out their various pieces of business in a way that they have grown accustomed to under previous Barbados Labour Party governments. Now, sir, I want, in closing, to certainly at this stage again thank the staff of the AG's office, because, sir, I must say to you through and the rest of the members of this chamber, whilst I'm an economist by profession, over the last 6 months, sir, I've had so much exposure to the law. I feel as if I may be able to do something differently going forward. But, sir, it is really, I really want to thank the staff of the AG's chambers throughout this entire process, because as we have sought to bring, certainly finance has brought a lot of legislation to this House in the last 6 months, and in order to lay the foundation within which this economy can recover. And I think that it is important, sir, to recognize that without that work being done by the office of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, and certainly under the leadership of the AG, then we would not have been able, sir, to create an atmosphere of stability, because, sir, you know that any government must have the moral authority to be able to conduct the business of the people. And whilst we have had to shift some timelines based on priorities, and there's only so much staff available with respect to the drafting, I really do want to acknowledge that there's been good work between the staff of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and Investment, and that of the AG's office, because, sir, this is what gives the foundation, sir, for the recovery that we know will come to take root. And so I know that going ahead, sir, as announced certainly by the Prime Minister last week that there's more work to be done by the staff of the Chief Parliamentary Council, and even under, as we speak now, they are continuing to work on more bills relating to financial matters. And I do want to publicly thank them for working way beyond what people in the public seem to think, that public servants don't work. But I can attest, sir, that the commitment of the staff that I've encountered across government to the recovery of this country, I have seen nothing, sir, but hard work to make sure that we can create an atmosphere of stability once again in this country. With that, sir, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Oblige. For question, Michael West.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I would assure you I shall not be detaining the House unduly. This is a matter, of course, which has to do with validation of an action taken by the Minister of Finance in June, and I've had some say with respect to this matter of personal income taxes and corporation taxes as outlined in that ministerial presentation during June of earlier this year. But if I were to be honest, I would have to begin by acknowledging that it is a truth indicated by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central with respect to how people feel, are beginning to feel about their income tax returns, which they have begun to receive. And I had an experience which fully matches that which the Honourable Member alluded to when he said that some people are surprised and are asking some questions as to what monies these might be on my bank account. And has government been doing something new of which I am unaware? I have had that experience. I stay in touch with people. People come to me. And I do have to admit that one young man of recent days ran very excitedly and hurriedly to me and asked me to explain what was going on, that there was this money on his account that he couldn't explain. So he had to check with the bank to see if a mistake had been made. So I do have to acknowledge and admit that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central got it right when he said that people are very happy that the returns on income tax have begun to be received. So we give the government credit for that. But I have to be fully honest, I also have to say, and in greater numbers and in more recent days, some people have come to me asking about their pay, their salary for the month of November, because they've gone to certain financial institutions, banks, and credit unions, expecting a lodgement of their monthly pay, not to have found them. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if I'm going to be honest and commend the government for one, I've got to draw to the attention of the government the second thing, and ask on behalf of those people out there who have gone to the banks in recent days and not found their salaries, what is the position? And that is the truth. And that is the truth. So it plays both ways. I do not know if there is some delay in the banking system itself, in the processing. Do not know if the delay is on the side of the Treasury of Barbados. But it needs to be explained if there is a problem, what is the problem and why people have not been receiving their pay for the month of November. And I am sure that there are some honourable members on the other side who are also on the ground, who interact with people and to whom people come, and they would have faced this as a reality as well. So I want to put that concern out there, and hopefully it is something that the government will try to address. Second thing I want to ask Mr. Deputy Speaker, or to raise, is in relation to the reverse tax credit, and to simply ask whither to the reverse tax credit. I've heard a lot of talk about this in recent months. The government understands the importance of it and therefore will ensure that it happens. My view is, to use a concept coming from the other side, that this business of the reverse tax credit should be seen in the total context of those things which are mission critical. There are people who depend upon this reverse tax credit. I believe it is insufficient for the government to suggest that perhaps next year we will get around to doing that. We're talking about people who are at the bottom of the ladder in Barbados, if they are fortunate enough to be employed, and if they're further fortunate enough to be properly employed. And therefore, the reverse tax credit should be put on the front burner insofar as government finances would allow. This is a very important and critical thing. These are people who face the intense suffering of which we speak in these hallowed chambers weekly. If it is people who are facing suffering out there, it is this category of persons, who some of whom might be fortunate, those who are fortunate to be employed, but connected also in contexts where there are several who have been unemployed or underemployed for a long time, and in a context where we're putting recent retrenchment on top of that. And so all I'm saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, through you to this Parliament and to the government, the members on the other side, is that this reverse tax credit is not some token venture on the part of some administration in our fairly recent past, but that this was an attempt to soften the burden of the value-added tax. And this reverse tax credit was put in place and introduced to counter the negative impact of the value-added tax on those at the bottom of the ladder in Barbados who were working for minimal amounts. And therefore, if we truly believe that the last 10 years have seen pervasive and massive suffering on working class people in Barbados, we have also to conclude that this reverse tax credit as a mechanism and our reversion to it must be seen as a mission critical issue. I urge the government to get to this with the soonest possible dispatch. These are the people in Barbados who are suffering more than anybody else. And this was not a handout to them. This was a help out by a caring administration. And I urge that that level of care be sustained or be rediscovered, and that the lot and plight of these people becomes something which is captured by the mission critical efforts of the government. There was an increase of VAT in the last 10 years as well, which was supposed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to have been temporary. So if at the start you were working with 15%, you moved to 17.5%, you've increased the VAT. It means that the burden on those people would have been increased. I'm trying to underscore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the urgency of this matter. We can't talk about the things which are mission critical and put the return of the reverse tax credit on the back burner. Now, in addition to increased VAT under the last administration, we have, as well under them and under this current administration, additional tax burdens being placed on the shoulders of Barbadians. And all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that if the situation was bad when VAT was introduced, certainly 15 years later, or whatever the specific date is, the situation is worse now because we've had an increase in VAT, and then we've had taxes imposed by the last administration, now taxes imposed by this administration on top of that. The question is, whether the fortunes of those people, what about their plight, and whether the reverse tax credit, it has to be seen as something which is mission critical. Do we have a quorum? Do we have a quorum? We do?
Just don't say it.
We have a quorum?
Just don't say it.
Sorry?
You want to stop with anybody?
I sat and listened to him, his entire speech. You have to have name.
That's really bad. Hold on a bit. There need to be a quorum. Member for Sir Michael West, continue your speech.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker.
Go ahead.
As I was saying, tempting to say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think the government of the day needs to view the return of the reverse tax credit as part of their mission critical response to the plight of Barbadians today, especially those operating at the lowest level, to whom that benefit, or upon whom that benefit was conferred in an effort to lighten the burden and to ease their plight. In a context where a value-added tax had been introduced, a value-added tax had been increased, a value-added tax which was supposed to be temporary in some measure was extended and still lives on, still applied. And in a context where the last administration has been castigated by the government of the day for the burdensome level of taxes that it imposed on the Barbadian economy, and on top of that, this administration itself has come now and added to the tax burden. We have to take seriously the plight of poor people in Barbados. We cannot give lip service to their cause, and therefore I'm suggesting that this matter of the reverse tax credit is a critical thing. It is not tokenism, cannot simply be said to be something, hopefully, that we will get to next year. Now, Mr. Speaker, despite all of that, we have seen the erosion of the VAT base in Barbados. We have seen the underperformance of revenue generation by means of VAT. And those who research these things will suggest that the reason for this is because of waivers, exemptions, and zero ratings. And the point I'm coming to, Mr. Speaker, is simply this, that to the extent that the VAT continues to underperform, it puts additional pressure on the government of the day, the Ministry of Finance, to resort to other means of revenue generation, to other forms of taxation. And so you move away in that regard from a consumption tax such as VAT, and you impose higher levels of income tax, whether at the personal level or corporate level. And that is how I interpret what has happened in Barbados. We've seen a move towards increase of personal income tax, and by the measures of June this year, the financial statement, the mini budget, we saw a move to increase corporation tax. And I'm suggesting that if VAT underperforms because of a ministerial discretion that allows for waivers and exemptions and all of this without circumscription, then we have a problem. I'm simply leading to the point, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, where I believe that we need to look at this business of ministerial discretion and ministerial power with respect to the granting of waivers and exemptions, etc. We have heard many a story in recent days of luxury vehicles in Barbados on our streets having come into, we don't manufacture them here, having come into our context in this economy, luxury vehicles for which the appropriate duties and stuff not being paid. I am not personally privy to having these types of documents and stuff in my hand, but those who follow trucks religiously and are in a position to see when the documents fall off the backs of these vehicles will tell you. And we have heard these stories, Mr. Speaker, you have, Deputy Speaker, you've heard them, I have heard them. I do not know the registration numbers on these vehicles. All I'm hearing is that we have had in recent times instances of persons who drive these vehicles on our streets having had the benefit of ministerial generosity. I'm simply suggesting that we need to look perhaps again at the business of the ministerial discretion, the ministerial power that allows for exemptions and waivers at will to persons to whom ministerial offices might be connected. That is the Barbadian reality to which I am pointed. We have heard, and the very government that sits in office today has also been loud in castigation of concessions given especially in the tourism sector to certain entities and to some construction entities as well. Now, if all of this is true, and that is the reality, and that ministerial discretion is being either unwisely exercised or abusively exercised, then we have a case for looking again at this business of ministerial discretion. In the absence of visibility, in the absence of scrutiny, discretion which is exercised beyond the scope and expectation or anticipation of the legislation, we need to establish clearly qualified criteria that would guide those who are vested with power to exercise such power in the interest of Barbadians. That is all I am saying with respect to that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm sorry. Now, the tax rate increase in the mini budget of June, of which this amendment and validation bill is a sequence, introduces a new higher tax rate of 40% on those who earn $75,000 per year and more. We spoke to this in June, but I would simply want to add perhaps or repeat one or two comments. These are people, Mr. Deputy Speaker, who in the last 10 years, that period that many on the other side referred to as the lost decade, the hard years, the years of suffering. These are people who lost allowances. The member for Christchurch East, Central, when he spoke, referred to that. The fact that they lost allowances under the last administration. But notwithstanding the fact that they lost allowances with which the members on the other side disagreed at the time, we are now seeking to bring them into a tax bracket which causes them to pay more out of their pockets towards the Treasury. So we're targeting a group that has already been targeted by and lost benefits to the removal of allowances against personal income tax. These constitute that category of persons which I describe, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as our domestic investors. They may not be investing in big things, in big entities, but where there is domestic investment that helps us to further create and strengthen that culture of investment among our people, these are the people who lead in that regard. We're taking away from these people more out of their pockets. These are the people potentially who are our middle class, our middle range, let's say, our middle range domestic investors here in Barbados. This category of persons is the group, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that hires the working class. This is the group that gets the guy to mow the lawn or to do weed whacking around the house. This is a group that pays the maid, the domestic, to iron the clothes or cook the food or keep the children. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know these people. This is a group that hires the working class. This is a group that hires from among the lowest socioeconomic groups in Barbados. We're further taking income away from this group, which will inhibit their ability to do those things. This is the group, Mr. Speaker, more than any other, owed income tax returns, 2014, 2015, 2016. Thankfully, we're paying 2017. But this is the group, more than any other, that is owed income tax returns. So we're doing this to this group of persons. And when a member, Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, spoke with reference to this matter and this group, he offered the dubious compliment that these people understood exactly what we're doing and appreciated the need for sacrifice and were willing to sacrifice. And that this group seemed to be represented in those who sat around the table of consultation, private sector, labor officials, etc., etc. A dubious compliment. But whether we compliment them or not, the reality is that we're taking more money out of these people's pockets at a bad time. And at a time when, if you look at the context, there are other increased taxes all around. There's a fuel charge, there's a garbage and sewage charge, there's a health contribution. These people are paying all of these things. So we're not simply increasing a tax rate to 40% on a certain figure. We are, in fact, impacting on the lot of a very critically important unit in our economy. And that is the context in which this thing is taking place. Now, Mr. Speaker, I simply remind that we are tracking in the same way that the last administration tracked. Now, we may make the argument that the situation with which we are confronted in Barbados today demands that we do these things. We can make that argument. And that argument is being made by the government. But we have to consider that we're tracking in the same direction that the previous administration tracked and which we criticized when in government. Yeah, we're talking about taxation. One of the first acts of the Democratic Labour Party when it came to office in 2008, Mr. Speaker, was to raise $100 and something million in new taxes in an economy which was about to face the impact of global recession. Well, that was day one, and we have never recovered from it. We have not recovered from it up until now. To use the words of the member from Christchurch East Central, we are in a deep, dark hole from which we need to dig ourselves out. I'm saying that our first hole, when it was that hole when first dug, was dug with $100+ million of new taxes imposed by the government of the day in 2008 on the Barbadian economy, inclusive of taxes on energy, which lies at the base of our economic framework here in Barbados. So 120, whatever it was, $1 million in new taxes. First act of the new government in 2008. We heard loud criticisms of that, understandably and reasonably so. In the budget, in June, the outflow of which is this amendment and validation bill before us today, the taxes raised far exceed 100 and some million. In fact, if you look at just a few of them, don't even have the notes here in front of me, look at just a few of them, $85 million related to the fuel charge changes, $57 million health service contribution, $65 million garbage sewage, and then you've got a measure to come from the new arrangements with the tourism entities, and $41 million from this new tax rate of 40% for those who are working for $75,000 and over. In fact, in the words of the Minister of Finance, these taxes introduced in June, the personal and corporate income tax elements of which we are validating today, providing for the amendment. In her words, they're more than fully funded the NSRL and the road tax when you remove. So when you have removed the road tax and you remove the NSRL, you have still compensated more than evenly, abundantly. You have exceeded what you were getting there in that situation. So I'm saying that we need to be careful because we're tracking, in my view, where the Dems tracked, even though we may want to suggest that we are doing it out of expediency and that we're left without a choice. Now there's a bit of awkwardness here, and the the member for Christchurch East, minister in the Ministry of Finance, struggled, Christchurch East Central that is, struggled a bit with it, a little bit of awkwardness, because you come to the chamber in June and you carry corporation tax rate from 25% to 30%. From 25% to 30% in June. A few months later, you come back to the chamber and you're saying the circumstances are such that you're forced to reduce those corporation taxes back down to up to 5% at the highest level. Now, we attribute this to the pressures which we have to face, from international institutions, the OECD and these kind of agencies, these supranational agencies, we feel that we have to give way to these pressures, and that's a debate to come, because I believe that the relevant ministry must bring some legislation here to this chamber to underscore the amendments which will support the ministerial statement of just last week. But you came in June, you moved corporation tax from 25% to 30%. You come back a few months later to eliminate that virtually, and the highest rate is going to be 5%. And you have to tell us what it is that is driving your thinking. OECD, it might be. But I know for a fact that you entered into an arrangement with the IMF earlier this year. And part of the context under which you entered into the arrangement with the IMF was that your corporate tax rate would be 30%. And so you went there, you made arrangements. And so your revenue generation levels expected X amount. Now, if you have to reduce that to a high of 5%, a minimum of 1% or something like that, then you have to make up that tax from somewhere. And that seems to suggest to me that in a short while you'll be coming to Barbadians again with new taxes to make up on the shortfall. But we will wait and see what happens with respect to that. How do you address what you anticipate?
Point of order.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I don't really like to interrupt the Leader of the Opposition in midstream.
What's the point of order? What is the point of?
The Honourable Member is misleading the House, and grossly so. And I would refer him to the Prime Minister's ministerial statement when she was at pains and very clearly stated that the change in the reduction in taxes for companies locally and the loss of the revenue there would be balanced by the increase in tax revenue from what was international businesses. So therefore, the net effect would be revenue neutral. And it was very clear in the statement that the Prime Minister made. Revenue neutral.
Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am happy to be interrupted anytime by my friend from Christchurch West. He's a very honest man, and I know he's interested always in honest debate, and I'm willing to stand corrected if I am at fault in my understanding of what was presented. But I can quote from the same ministerial statement, if you would allow, to which he referred.
Is it a document in the House?
It is a document, of course, in which the Honourable Member suggested the words of the Minister of Finance alluded to some concept of revenue neutrality. Now, you may aspire towards that. You may even aim at it, but you have to show me how you're going to get there. Because you have now reduced corporation tax from 30% to a high of 5%, a low of 1 or 1.5%. That's a big gap. Mr. Speaker, you can't simply tell me that you expect to get more international business and so this will turn out to be revenue neutral. You have to show me the numbers. And the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central is a numbers man. He's a big numbers man. Christchurch West, he's a big numbers man.
On a point of elucidation, well, I guess I can't elucidate my own speech, so it has to be a point. I haven't spoken yet, but a point of order. It has to, and I want to not only explain to the member for St. Michael West The numbers have to do with the base
This is a
on
point of
which
explanation.
a point of order. The honourable member
Elucidation?
is trying to mislead the House.
Okay.
I cannot elucidate on a speech I have not yet given,
Okay.
Mr. Speaker. So therefore I could not get up on a point of elucidation, even although the Leader of Opposition is asking me to. But I will have to wait for my own speech to elucidate. I cannot elucidate on his speech.
So point of order.
Point of order. The honourable member continues to try to mislead the House without explaining to the House that even although a percentage rate may be smaller, it depends on the base at which that percentage is worked out. Now obviously our tax base, which is 30% on 100 to make $100 million, it's very different from taking a 1% out of a company that is making $700, $800, and $900 million. So even although you are taking 1/5 of a percent, the actual taxable income is 10, 15, or 20 times more, and that is how come it ends up being revenue neutral. And I'm sure the honourable member would understand these numbers.
That is very good maths, Mr. Deputy Speaker. You know that and I know that. That is very good maths. But I still say, don't show me the numbers in a theoretical frame. Show me the numbers actually in terms of that base. And further, the Honourable Member of Christchurch West did say, put these words in the mouth of the Minister of Finance in relation to that ministerial statement.
He put the word in
He
his
put
mouth.
these words in the mouth of the Minister of Finance in relation to that ministerial statement when he said that the compensation will come because the additional taxes, the shortfall will be made up through new international business. And let me read from the speech, if I would, get your copy. The Honourable Minister of Finance said, and this is in the speech, the burden of taxation will fall on consumption and wealth, such as VAT, petrol taxes, user fees, land tax. The Minister of Finance said that. All I'm saying is, with the anticipated change in revenue generation levels, that makeup has to come from somewhere. And I trust that the government is not leading us to a place where, having castigated the former administration for high and burdensome levels of taxation, having come already in 6 months and increased additional burdens in terms of taxation on the basis of expediency, I hope the government is now not taking us to a place where we have to expect greater burden of taxation which will fall on consumption and wealth, such as VAT, petrol taxes, user fees, and land tax. That's in the ministerial statement. And that is my concern. My concern is that you reflect certainty in what you're doing, because in 1 month you are here raising the corporate tax level, 4 months later you are here reversing that and going to the extreme, even though we understand the context in which that is taking place. With respect to the write-offs, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I think Barbadians have a right to know. If you're going to write off taxes between whatever year, 68 to 2000, if you're going to waive penalties and interest between 2000 and 2017, I think Barbadians have a right to know. And I don't mean they should have the duty to go and investigate. I think they have a right to know, at least above a certain level, whose taxes are being written off. Whose taxes are being, when a tax is written off, that's an assault upon the Barbadian purse. Barbadians have a right to know whose taxes are being written off. Those long years, Barbadians have a right to know, and not because they go investigate, they have a right to be informed as to whose penalties and interests, above a certain level, of course, are being waived. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank you for your courtesy.
Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the opportunity to make a very brief contribution to this matter. And I'm still trying to keep with my commitment to relate the matters being discussed to a particular passage in the Bible. And of course, I always use the King James Version. And I want to relate to Luke chapter 2, verses 1, 2, and 3. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in life, there are two certain things, death and taxes. And taxes are something that governments raise to be able to do the people's business. If the government did not raise taxes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we could not pay our nurses. We could not pay our policemen. We could not pay...
Point of order.
I think my honourable friend from Christ.
What do you raise?
Yes, is misleading the House, Mr. Deputy Speaker. He talks about the inevitability of death and taxes. And in that breath in which he spoke, he seemed to be equating the two. And I hope he is not misleading the House by suggesting to us that it is the government's intention to kill us with taxes.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, clearly I appreciate the levity of the Honourable Member for St. Michael West on this particular occasion. Because clearly the government does not intend to kill anybody with any taxes. The government has a duty and a responsibility to appropriately manage the affairs of the country. And in order to do that, there are certain measures which have to be put in place to be able to achieve those objectives. The people of this country elected us and put us in place to do a job. In fact, the people of this country overwhelmingly elected the Barbados Labour Party members of Parliament, of which the Leader of the Opposition at the time was one, to do the job of right-sizing this economy and putting this country back on a growth path. And let me say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that I fully and categorically support the measures put forward by the member for Christchurch West East Central, because those measures are giving the people of Barbados a chance to say, look, you have owed a certain amount of taxes prior to 2000. We recognize that those taxes that you owe may have been a burden to your business being able to progress and expand. So we are going to say those taxes, arrears, penalties, and interest, you no longer have to pay up to 2000. But going forward, we are encouraging you and imploring that you must bring all of the rest of your taxes up to date. And we are giving you this opportunity to write off those arrears, but bring the rest up to date. And bring all of your taxes up to date. And this is the salient point in this legislation. Because we have to understand things happen. People have difficulties. They have medical difficulties. Businesses have problems. Issues happen when business turns down for whatever reason. And the government has to understand that in business, there are ups and there are downs. And we recognize this as a government, and we're saying we understand that you may have accumulated these arrears for whatever reason, but going forward, we expect you to be up to date, just as how the government is endeavoring to be up to date. And I applaud the government and I applaud the minister for first bringing and paying the arrears for income tax for the people for 2017. And we intend to look at the arrears for 2016, 15, 14, and all the rest going forward as well. But we first must keep current. And just in the same way that the government intends to keep current, we expect individuals to keep current as well. And let me answer a point with the Leader of the Opposition. 2 points. The first point has to do with how you calculate taxes. And the Leader of the Opposition is suggesting that the $145 million that we take in corporate tax cannot be made up by taxing what were foreign companies. And let me make it clear, there was a time when we taxed companies, he's right, 30%, 25%, went to 30%, and we changed it, and we understand that, because that is why there's a parliament. There's a parliament here because you have to change with the times. We meet almost every week because you have to be able to chart a course. Sometimes a ship is going towards a rock, and you have to be able to tack left or tack right. Sometimes you have to turn around and reposition and reroute in order to get to the destination. This is why there's a parliament, because parliament is here to change and set laws depending on the particular situation that we find ourselves in. Now, yes, when the mini-budget was put in place, the corporate taxes were raised to 30%. But then we recognized two things: that the OECD was looking to greylist or blacklist us, and that the former Minister of International Business had signed a letter committing the government of Barbados to do certain things. By December. And it was by December of this year. So if that occurred, remember, government is a continuum. And we had a fiduciary, well, I guess it's fiduciary duty, but a responsibility to honor a letter given by a minister of the Crown.
No resident in New York.
Well, I'm hearing that he's resident in, I thought he was resident in Tampa with a particular new type of jewelry on his ankle. That's what I heard. I don't know for sure, but I know hear that. But anyway, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me not be distracted. That commitment required the government of Barbados, because it committed us to certain actions. And that action was to be able to bring what is called convergence. And what convergence essentially is that we had two options. You could either raise the tax of all of what was international business companies to 30%, at which time they would say, well, that's the same tax that I'm paying in my home, so I might as well leave and pay my taxes in UK or USA or Canada. Canada is one of the big ones. Or you can take the tax that you charge your local people and bring that down to an increased tax that you charge the then international business companies. So it's a conversion. Bring up theirs and bring down yours. And the judgment call had to be made. Are we going to look to try to see if we can quadruple the tax that we get from our local companies, which is $145 million, and to get that up to $600 million? Or is it more likely that we're able to open Barbados for business and to encourage more of our international businesses, first to pay a little bit more, and secondly, more international business to come to Barbados and raise the tax base on which that tax is worked out? And a judgment call had to be made. And it is clear that our businesses are not going to quadruple in size overnight. But we can attract many more international companies here, asking them to pay a little bit more tax. And we didn't just wake up and do this overnight. We'd have had consultations with the international businesses. We'd have had commitments that they're prepared to come. Others are prepared to come. We understood that they appreciated that they had to pay some tax. In fact, you know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are some international businesses that are encouraged and want to pay tax rather than being in a low tax environment. They prefer to come to Barbados, which has a low tax environment, than go to the Cayman Islands, for instance, which has a zero tax environment. And they prefer to do that because we have good services here. We have good infrastructure here. We have a system that can be held up to test all over the world. And that is why we have made a judgment call that what we lose in terms of our local businesses, we can make up on our international businesses. And I'll give you an example. How many companies in Barbados are in the $30 million taxable income range? How many are in the 40 million, 50 million, 60 million? But there are hundreds of international companies that are in the 100 million, 200 million and up range. So when you look at 1% of 100 million, 200 million taxable income versus 20% of a 1 million, well, it's a no-brainer. It is based on the quantum of taxable income. So the judgment was that we would move towards opening up to the international businesses and bringing that tax rate to a convergence which we all agree on. And that is the basis, and that is the way forward. We have to stop looking inward in this country. I keep saying it all the time. We are only 166 square miles. We only have 300,000 people. It is time for us to look outward. The world is where our business is. We look outward in tourism, but we don't look outward in investment enough. We don't look outward in manufacturing enough. And until we as a people understand that looking outward is where we have to go, we will continue to suffer the ravages of the international problems and the international issues and not be able to sustain and maintain ourselves when we get those economic shocks. It is very, very important. And it is, and let me also salute the economic team of this country, because year after year we had downgrades. But let me remind the people of Barbados that for the first time in 10 years in this country, we saw Standard & Poor's give the Barbadian economy a triple upgrade. Not a single upgrade, not a double point upgrade, a triple upgrade, 3 notches, 1 time. Because, and the reason that we had the triple upgrade is because, and let me tell you, and let me say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Standard & Poor's ain't got no axe to grind for the Barbados Labour Party, nor the Democrat Labour Party, nor the opposition, nor PUP, nor whatever. Standard & Poor's assesses based on the economic and expected outflows based on your economic decisions and your financial decisions. And Standard & Poor's, based on what they saw was happening in Barbados, gave the government of Barbados and the people of Barbados a triple notch upgrade. That is to tell us, we ain't out of the woods yet, but you're pointing in the right direction. And that is what we have to understand. And, you know, during the election, I told the people we were going to turn around this economy. And we were going to see upgrades. And my words didn't fall to the ground. The upgrades have started, and they will continue. Because we understand where we have to go. We know what we have to do in this country. And let me go a little further. In the budget, not in the budget, and when we were discussing the 5% increase for civil servants, I looked and I said very, very clearly to the people of Barbados, I was happy that the government had seen its way to give a 5% increase for civil servants. But I was asking the private sector to follow suit and give an increase for its workers as well. Well, now let me report, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and say I am so happy and proud to see the Barbados Workers Union and the Barbados Hotel Association have come to deal to give the workers of the hotel industry a 5.5% increase. That is a start, and it's a move in the right direction. And I don't mind the other private sector people saying, well, they're ready for an increase yet. They got to give the people an increase. The government is only employing 25,000 people. The private sector is employing 100,000 people. You know how much that increase would do for the people of Barbados? And you can tell me that we are going to reduce your tax that you pay. So if you were making taxable income of $100,000, you're now going down to $5,000. That means that you now got $95,000 in your company that you didn't have before. But good gracious, you mean to tell me that you ain't going to share that with your employees? You got to look at giving the people an increase. It is not the unions, it is the private sector that has to understand that the people of Barbados who have held strain, in the same way that the private sector joined with the then government and instituted a wage freeze, the wage freeze is off. The freeze thaw out. The government gave an increase. Join with us in the same way and give the employees of Barbados an increase. I applaud the hotel sector. I want to see it in manufacturing. I want to see it in the retail sector. And let me tell you something. If you put, I want to see it in banking, I want to see it in insurance, I want to see it in sales, I want to see it all through Barbados. Because if you put more money in the people's hands, what are they going to do? They're going to spend more. If they spend more, what that means, the economy turns around. You start to put little oil and grease on the wheel. And instead of moving so slowly, you get it moving faster. They're going to be able to increase the amount of spending power. And each employer has to play their part. And let me tell you, I get lashes for it. Many of my friends come and tell me, you telling me get increase, but how many people you employ? And they come and tell me that I ain't employing nobody, so it ain't cost me nothing. But I used to employ people. I had over 40 employees. And I understood what it meant. A little $50, $60 increase might not mean a lot to an employer, but it means a hell of a lot to a gas station attendant. It means a hell of a lot to somebody who is working at the lower end. And a begging and a pleading now. You're getting a reduction in the taxes you're going to pay. You're seeing an increase in business. You got a tax write-off on tax arrears. Get out there and increase the amount that the people are paid. Because if everybody plays their part, it would help to turn this economy around. And we need all to play our part. You know, Mr. Speaker, the people of Barbados elected us to do a job. And we are determined. And we are focused. And we are making sure that we do the job the people asked us to do. And yes, there are going to be some difficulties. And yes, there are going to be some missteps. But you cannot make missteps if you ain't doing nothing. If you get to make missteps when you're doing something. So you have to do. You have to get up and change things. Yes, you're going to make errors, but you're going to come back and fix them. Because that's the only way that you're going to move forward. And we are determined that we're going to take this country forward. We're going to right-size this economy. And we're going to make this country ready to face the future broad. And to face the future full force with chest high and shoulders straight. Because this is our 52nd year of independence. And we are a proud nation. And we will continue to be proud. I'm obliged.
Thank you. Eddie?
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House be suspended until 2:15.
Second. Seconded. Second.
Second, sir.
Question is that this House be suspended until 2:15 today. All members in favor say aye. Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This House is now suspended until 2:15 this afternoon.